Johnny Morgan. It's a beautiful, Monday night in the Ozarks. It's
Monday.
like 45, 50 degrees. It's a beautiful day to be alive. And I'm here with the one and the only Glyn Strong. Glyn, how are you feeling tonight?
Awesome.
Feeling awesome?
Really well.
Is this your first podcast ever or no?
First ever.
First ever. So
Yes.
not only is it the first podcast for you ever, but you're also discussing something on a podcast that has never been publicly talked about yet.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I
well,
would.
I'm just going to say that because it's more fun. So.
Well, we did some stuff, but it was like closed group stuff.
Closed group stuff. So
Nothing-
not public podcast stuff.
Correct. So you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay, good stuff. If you're watching online, you may notice that we're not recording on the couch or in the podcast studio yet. Things take time. But we're here on my glass table. Shout out to Brooks and Andy downstairs for moving it upstairs. The best part of living in a restaurant is that I often do not have to move my own furniture anymore. So it's the wrong button, but I do that all the time. Well, thank you, Glyn, so much for coming on the pod. I want to start off and just kind of talk about a little bit of, your background, who you are, where you grew up. But ultimately, before we get into that, Glyn and I met at a manufacturing networking event here in Springfield. Shout out to Ma'am. But we just started talking, and I'm like, wow, what you're doing is so cool. Your product is so cool. Let's get you on the podcast side sometime. So that's our origin story, if you will.
Yes, and then it's several conversations and other meetings since then. So yeah.
That's right. We're besties.
Yeah.
So Glyn, go ahead and bring us up to speed of, how did you get to Springfield? What are you doing now? A little bit of that jam.
All right. Got to Springfield from my call center years.
Okay.
I used to run large call centers all over the United States, and a buddy had one here in town and needed some help and called, and I was in Michigan at the time. And made the trip down here. Now, we had lived in Branson before. I met my wife in Branson back in 94, married in 96, and then we traveled all over the place and came back here 2000-ish.
Okay, sweet. Did you go to college anywhere or no?
Went to Mizzou for a hot minute.
Nice.
It was a lot more beer drinking and chasing women than there was school. But
it
I was there.
happens.
I was there. I saw the Colorado Fifth Down. But
Okay, cool. So then you came to Springfield. Now, can you walk us through a little bit of the different job roles you've had?
Wow. I've done a lot in Springfield. I got involved in the real estate world 2008-ish, right when the market crashed. A bunch of people got together and were buying a whole bunch of houses, and I kind of grabbed their shirt tails and said, hey, I want to do this. And we wound up eventually flipping like 138 houses here in Springfield.
Wow.
Market was dead, so we wound up turning those brand new shiny houses into rentals, and then we filled them up with rentals, and oh no, we need more. And then so we kept buying more, and next thing you know, there's 300 properties under management, and that's like, hey, well, you know what, I should probably get my real estate license, which led to doing, now I'm in sales, back and forth in sales and property management. That learned in, hey, I'm going to be a broker, and if you're a broker, you can own a real estate company. Why own one or start one? Let's just buy one that's already in business, that already had property management, and so that turned into all of that. And yeah, it's.
So do you still have your hand in real estate right now then at all or no?
I don't. Some folks will call some old clients and say, hey, I'm thinking about flipping this. Can you look at it? Or, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Or what's really the best use of this corner? Or what's really the best use of this building? And so some of that, but it's like friends of friends and brother-in-laws.
Gotcha.
So
did you just like sell that business then? Or how
yes,
did it? Nice.
Yes. All gone.
Nice. Okay.
We walked away from that one.
Gotcha. Another one bites the dust.
Hey, no, it was great. It was great. I've got, all things happen for a reason. You may not agree with it or like it, but the lessons that I learned there have certainly pushed forward.
Absolutely.
Especially in the renewable world. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So Glyn, why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about I've heard the pitch.
Yes.
And I feel like at this point I could sell it, and I love it. So, but a lot of my listeners are between the ages of 18 to 28. We have listeners from every demographic, but really, can you walk us through where you're working now, how you got there, and exactly what Green CHP is?
Sure. So Green CHP is green combined heat and power. So it's two things. One thing does two things. It's as simple as that. So we have a solar panel that does everything everybody else's solar panel does. However, we have copper tubing running beneath it, and we suck the heat out of the solar panel, making it more efficient. But more importantly, we give that heat back to the client. So you're getting electricity and you're getting hot water. Well, hot water heat is actually fuel. It's very similar to electricity. You can do lots of things with it. So what happens is we have a solution that is at 89% efficient. Most solar panels are 20, 22 at the very best. So we are absolutely crushing the amount of energy that's coming out of the same real estate as what everybody else is doing by 4 or 5 times.
Absolutely amazing.
It is.
So the way that this all happened was pretty interesting.
Yes.
Can you touch on any of that, or?
So they're called photovoltaic thermal, which is PVTs, and so solar panels are just called PVs. A company out of the Netherlands hired myself to come and bring this technology to the United States, and I had never heard of it, but have been in wind and solar and hydro for years, and so I was really intrigued, and they're like, hey, listen, Vice President, here's a bunch of money. All we want you to do is make this happen in the U.S. And I'm like, well, based on these numbers, we can do that really, 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 really well. And so we did. And so for the next 3 or 4 months, since April, we were hitting the pavement, and we generated about $17 million worth of interest. So those aren't signed contracts from April. And on July 5th, we get a phone call and an email from the Netherlands saying they're pulling out, and that they were pulling out of absolutely everything.
So why would they want to pull out if there's so much money in the pipeline?
Well, ironically, they knew about most of that money in the pipeline, but our shareholder meeting to update them wasn't until the 14th. So this was kind of preempted. As soon as it happened, we said, hey, I want to keep this. Nobody bought from you. They all bought from me. So they're not going to call you and say, hey, where's my quote, or when are you installing? They're going to call me, and now you're telling me you're not going to fulfill that end, so you're going to give me these, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we can't do anything with them, so sure. And I said, send the email, let me get it in writing. And I went then and contacted the manufacturer that we were using. I went and contacted the US version of the engineers we were using. And everybody's like, sure, absolutely. Emily Norcross, who was the US president of that company, actually had to stay on for another month to wind things down. And I said, hey, I'm not stopping, come join me. And so a month later, she's like, let's go. And so,
wow.
So since then, we've generated about another, conservatively, somewhere in the 50 million range in addition.
Absolutely unreal.
But here's the thing. Let's make it really, really simple. What does it do and why is it important? Well, water comes into everyone's houses between 50 and about 55 degrees, and let's just call it 52. And 2 things happen. One, it goes right to your sink and you just, wash your hands, and that's it. No hotness to it at all. The other thing is it goes into your boiler, your hot water system, and it goes in at 52 to 55, and you heat it up to 120. Awesome. Okay, hot shower, do your laundry, things along those lines. My water comes off your roof with electricity at 160. So you don't need your hot water heater anymore. Now, that's really impressive at your apartment, your beautiful loft here.
Thank you. We love it here. Well, there we go. Sorry.
But more importantly, imagine you are a manufacturing facility and you used 80,000 gallons of hot water a day. 80,000 gallons, that natural gas spend, and even if they needed it steamed. So remember, 52 degrees, and it's going all the way up here to 212. Well, if I'm giving it to you at 160, look at how much natural gas I've reduced.
Yeah.
So we have just crushed sustainability goals, and all of a sudden the carbon credits start rolling in, and we've got one where we're removing 609 trucks off the road per month just on one proposal.
That's insane.
It's so some of the stuff that's happening is really, really unreal, but it's drinking from a fire hose that's like this big, because all we've been doing is traveling. And so every day, like tomorrow I'm in Atlanta. So sometime on Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to have a microphone and we're going to be sharing this very same story.
Absolutely.
With people that only want to build green buildings. Was that going to get me a sale tomorrow? No, probably not. But 3 months from now, we're going to be engineering those sales that are coming 6 months from now. Well, what were we doing 3 months ago? All of those things are now
in the pipeline.
So we're grabbing all this traction, and so it's becoming really real. You don't say, oh, well, you need an engineer. Well, we have 2. Well, we actually need 4 now. It's a world's greatest problem to have. Bring interest to something that should have been here a long time ago. I mean, how simple is this? And they used to take rocks and throw them out of the cave at night, let them sit in the sun all day, then bring them back and keep the family warm. We're not doing much differently. We're just doing it a little more efficiently and doing this exact same thing. So we don't care what you use the heat for, and we certainly don't care what you use the electricity for, but it is a game changer when you can have it for free. And on those big commercial, industrial, most of those paybacks are 4 years or less. The biggest one I've ever seen is 6 years.
Wow.
So
why do you think that America has not brought this model yet, since they're doing it in Europe?
You know, a couple things. First thing is, as Americans, we really don't care about hot water until it doesn't work. That's when we care. Wait, what's going on? I'm not getting a shower now, and somebody fix this. But more importantly is that our systems require solar panels, and solar solutions in and of themselves don't have any moving parts. That's why they've got a great warranty. 20 years. There's nothing to move or break. So at the end of the day, it's going to last for a long time. And it does. When you add our system, which is the thermal portion, we have to add a pump. And so you're adding plumbing and electricity together on the same thing, on the same roof. It takes a higher skill set. We don't need just an electrician. We also need a plumber. And then we also need somebody to deal with the pump. And sometimes we have to put it in bigger storage units. But that's why, I think, is because nobody really cares about hot water, and the lobbyists in the natural gas world have done a very good job for a very, very long time. And so we just don't even think of it. The bill comes, we just pay it. And do I think it was awesome marketing? Yeah, probably to our great-grandparents, but it's just passed along, my opinion. But, something to go on. And to be honest with you, they natural gas people don't like me anyway, so...
Why don't natural gas people like you?
Because they don't use our product anymore. We take it right away. So, anyway.
Wow.
Exciting.
Wow.
Thanks for asking.
Of course. Well, and one, I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast, because I know we'll get to it, but you're like a traveling busy bee. So, I mean, Glyn literally is gone tomorrow. He's been gone. So, to Glyn for coming out to the podcast. But I remember, too, when we had gotten lunch a few months ago, it's just so funny because, like, in girl world, you're sitting with your friend, you're like, oh my gosh, what happened Friday night? Like, Who are you talking to? What's going on? You live 4 lives. But that is like how it was with Green CHP. I'm like, oh, how's business? But you're like, actually, we're taking it by ourselves, and we're doing this, and we're getting this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's insane. That happened in like weeks.
Yes, it went all self-funded really, really fast. And it was actually the best thing that could have happened to us. You don't know how tied your hands are when Europe owns your company that you work for. When those came off, all of a sudden certifications started rolling in, other manufacturers started rolling in. So we have 5 different PVT manufacturers that we represent, and nobody else in the United States has ever reached out to them to sell their products.
Wow.
And so now they're really excited about us. But so now I can have this specific solution, maybe a giant laundry facility in Florida, or this is a hotel in downtown Springfield, really small rooftop footprint, but they use some hot water, maybe not a ton, but so now I have different products that I can refer and actually give them the absolute best solution with the absolute best ROI, and then the absolute best for the environment. So
absolutely.
The whole thing really kind of all works in a really, really cool circle, but it takes some engineering. It's not like, hey, we're just going to throw some stuff up on your roof and plug it in and hook it right up to your grid. It does not work that way. We can't overproduce hot water or underproduce. We have to produce just the right amount, and it takes
right. And there's a lot of like planning and blueprinting, because I know we've had conversations where some of these businesses have to have a whole new roof, or have even like a little area next to the building where they can put that excess water or heat, or have a pump or anything like that.
Yes, absolutely. And there's so many tax incentives. There's so many reasons why companies should be involved in this right now, because of what the government's doing on the back end, or even in some cases on the front end. Some of those projects that they need a new roof on are covered in some of their incentives. It's the complete project, not just the solar thermal, the complete project. So if they're adding a carport and they're going to put our technology or just solar panels on the carport, it's the carport, the solar panels, the installation, all the steel, all the concrete, all of it's all under the same thing. And so there's some really great incentives out there, but you got to be talking to the right people and know who to talk to. And
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast is because people don't know.
They don't know.
So you gotta
That's right.
give that awareness. You gotta let them know,
Yes.
and that's what we're doing here. So that's fun. Okay, so I know you mentioned there's a lot in the pipeline. Do you have any contracts that are already in motion that are being manufactured at this exact moment? I'm just kidding.
We do have, there's about 16,000 panels that are being manufactured for us right now and on their way over here. So we don't use any Chinese or any of the bad place. All of our panels come from Europe specifically. So, but yes, there are quite a new. I can't tell you who it is and where it's going, but
we signed the NDA.
There's a bunch going on right now, and we were hoping before today, or at least today, we'd be able to make some announcements, and sadly we can't. But it's coming, and it's coming quickly.
And that's exciting. So when you have so much going on, and we're going to transition a little bit more about to you, but when you have so much going on, whether it's business and every day it's a new thing, a new agreement, a new meeting, maybe new information, something bad happens, how do you personally deal with that? We've had people on the podcast who are like, well, I have to work out no matter what. I have to, race cars or do whatever. How do you deal with being a business owner and all of that?
Support my lovely, beautiful wife is probably when I'm losing it, I'm like, hey, I need 5, and she gets it. And, my key, honestly, is I just can't stop. I really, really love what I do. I really have passion to be able to change the way we currently do things and make them better for the environment, make them better for, all around. And that helps a lot. I think that it would suck if still being in real estate, watching from afar, watching it go up and down and crash and burn and all the stuff. And, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it, and I learned a ton. But this I can really dig my teeth into. And so what's happened is, in the month of October, I'm home 5 days, because the other weeks I'm traveling and I'm standing on a stage talking about this exact thing. But it may be manufacturing folks this week. And so all these guys that have all these different things, and he manufactures, he helps build the tools that make M&Ms, and this guy builds the lid that goes on the beer cans, and all of these crazy things, and they all have specific, I need this much hot water, can you do it? And, well, sure, let me look. And then all of these, if we can help, we will. But we're the first guys to tell you, hey, you don't have enough roof space, you don't have access to the sun, we need more of this, we can only put this much on there because that's all you have, so this is all we can do. And so sometimes we're not a great fit. So I was told one time, I'm a niche within a niche. I'm niche because I'm solar, but then I'm niche because I'm also hot water. And so, it's all got to align. Well, that's fine. For those that do align, it is an unbelievable solution. It's pretty, I hope some of your folks reach out, because I'd love to share some of our case studies and some of the things that we've got.
No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. It's so exciting to see you pioneer solar that's already kind of been going on, but just have this whole new product and really come out and just win in the industry. So that's super cool. Did you always have an entrepreneur mindset, even in college? Yeah.
When I was little, my dad was in sales, and so I get bit by that bug. And so I think it was sophomore year in high school, I came home off the bus. I wasn't driving yet, obviously, but so my dad is in the pool, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I retired. And I'm like,
how old was he at this time?
40s, early 40s.
Wow.
And so I walked in, and I'm like, Dad, what's Mom? I said, Mom, what's Dad doing? And he said, he retired. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, the next morning I should hear the shower, because he's getting ready for work and I'm getting ready for school. We always see each other in the morning and time the showers out, So anyway, I didn't hear it. I'm like, all right, maybe I missed him. And didn't see him that morning. And so the next day, same thing. I get off the bus, come out the driveway. Guess who's in the pool?
Wow.
This time he's got a cracked beer open and he's having himself. He's enjoying himself. Yeah. And I'm like, I guess he did. And my mom's like, he did. And that's it. And never was really discussed. Never was really talked about. But he done very, very well. He listened and watched and learned and applied. And so,
what industry was he in?
He did a lot of industrial type stuff, like things, conveyor belts and things that move giant things, and the ball bearings and the whole systems that made him go from one side of the thing to another. So, one day he was in a factory, and the next day he'd be at a rock quarry. I mean, it was just, he was in all sorts of different stuff. And that the take your kid to work day was always fun because I always got to see massive, very loud machinery. And anyway, he'd go and have a conversation with somebody, and he'd come back. Now, remember, you got to, this is in the 60s, 70s, early 70s. And so they were coming out with like little pieces of paper that was like their order form, and he'd stick it in his briefcase, and he'd go to the next one. And and I was like, okay, so he goes, that's how we eat. And so it was, to me, I'm like, okay, you go out there and make it, and get somebody interested in something that will help them and move them forward, and everybody wins. And he said, that's the key. You can sell anything, but if you're helping and you're creating.
One thing about me is that I don't play games unless it's ping pong at Classics Yard. Classics Yard is Springfield's #1 social sport and game center. It is located in the back of Classic Rock Coffee Company headquarters and next door to the Riff. Coffee, sports, music, what more could you want? Located at 1900 West Sunset Street in Springfield, Missouri. Be sure to check them out, play some games, and reserve your event today. Visit www.classicsyard.com.
Creating a better environment for that person, the planet, or whatever. I just happened to hit the mother lode of being the guy that can do a whole bunch of those, and got super, super excited about it. Next thing you know, I'm only home 5 days in October.
Right.
So. And
I was going to say, you mentioned you're so passionate about like solar or, the environment. Like, where did that passion come from to transition? I mean, we haven't talked about like where the flip was from real estate to the solar world, but how did you decide, wow, I'm really passionate about this industry?
I don't know exactly when it happened. I know that it was really interesting to me that solar was not taking off here in Springfield at all. And I'm like, I think they're going at it the wrong way. And so several years ago, a lot of these small companies would pop up, and they would just door knock on residences. And they would just do like hardcore timeshare sales closes and just high pressure the heck out of these people. And so the issue was, you were seeing solar going up, but the people that were actually getting it were misled or misinterpreted to some sort. So there was a huge percentage of those, not all of them, but a huge percentage that were disappointed in what they were, versus what they were told versus what was going to happen. And a lot of it had to do with their tax incentives and things. But what wasn't being talked about was the commercial industrial world. Okay, and so I'm like, I can do that. And so one buddy wanted to open a solar, and I'm like, well, I'll help you only if we do commercial. Stay away from residential unless your sister wants it, your brother.
Right.
But if we focus there, I'm in. And that led to success. And then another guy said, hey, I want to do it. And I'm like, well, I got to wait a little while. And then they all agreed, and so we did it again. And so it turned into that, but I was not the residential guy. I was always the commercial.
And to me, commercial just makes more sense for solar than residential, but that's just me. But
I'm out. And the whole tax incentive things it's really, really clear. This is what's available to you. I have no idea that you qualify. I have no idea what your tax implications are. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney.
Right.
I don't ever want to be those folks.
Me neither.
They will help you. And we've spelled it out. This is the code. This is the tax law or whatever. But you need to go and you need to claim that on your own. We can't help you there.
Absolutely.
That becomes, guess what? There's no, anybody who looks at our contracts or our agreements prior to, it's very clear and spelled out, and everybody knows what they agreed to and how to do it and how to get there. And it becomes, the whole key to all this is simple. Mm-hmm. Things get hot if we can take the heat from it and give it back. One of my favorite sayings, and I was probably going to spoil this.
I was going to say this later in the pod.
But we're going to, the sun is millions of things, but in my world, it's three. The sun is really, really bright, creates solar. It's really, really hot, creates thermal, but it's free. And that's the three-legged stool that we are pushing is, look, we can do all this stuff. And yes, it's going to cost you money, but it's going to stop costing you money at X amount of time. And then everything else is free. So if I said, hey, you get a 4-year payback, well, there's still 16 more years of warranty left, meaning for 16 years, free electricity, free hot water, no natural gas spend. Add all those things together, it's really impressive. Really
well,
impressive.
and just the amount of money you can save and everything. It's insane why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So
It's fun. I love my job. I have a great job. Is it tiring? Is it long? Yes. But the things we do today is what pay dividends tomorrow. And the things we do to help the environment today are paying dividends tomorrow. So
Absolutely.
it's what I said earlier. You just can't stop. You just keep going. Yeah, you're going to hit some things. You're going to stumble and you're going to skin your knee. And yes, you got to take a vacation. But don't stop. Forward movement.
keep moving
motion.
forward.
Yep.
Yeah. That's something I always say for all different areas is you just got to keep her moving. So I want to touch back on something small because I want to talk about, in your mind, like the best way to get prospects, but also tied into the fact that you have, would you say you were gone, you're home for how long again out of October? Or
I'm sleeping 5 nights in my bed in the month of October.
So I want to talk about kind of both those elements together. So how does that work? Like, tell us about like family life, if you have kids. Like, how does that work in your relationship only being home for 5 nights?
Well, all my kids are grown and gone. My oldest is Taylor. He's 27. He's married. He's got a beautiful wife, beautiful 4-year-old daughter. And
Aw.
within days, we're going to have another one, which is Penelope.
Wow.
I got to see them when I was in D.C. Last week, and so we got to do dinner. That was awesome. My middle child, Miss Brittany. Brittany is in Lincoln, Nebraska. She is the producer for a TV station in Nebraska.
That's so cool.
And then my youngest, Kylie, she's still here in Springfield. She's got several different things that she's involved in and doing on, but she's doing great. All my kids grew up here in Springfield and went to Kickapoo, and yeah. So,
Awesome.
but married that same lady I met in Branson in 1994 while she was on vacation from LA to come to Branson and met her, and then she never left, and we hired a moving company to move her apartment from LA here.
Wow.
We've been together ever since. She's the rock. She's the one that's kept everything, all of us to going, but she's also the one that allows for this craziness to happen. I was in DC early 2 weeks ago and found out that if I stayed an extra 2 days, there was another hydrogen event. Well, what people don't know is that it's easier to split the atom in hydrogen if the water's hot. Well, guess what I do?
Right.
And free and green, and I can give them electricity, which they need to use, but they also can use the hot water and make their... So all of a sudden we became a huge hit at the Hydrogen Fest, which was the name of it. But so now back to your prospecting. You just don't know. I mean, once you find somebody and just share this, do you use a lot of hot water? Which is, again, it goes against everything Americans want to talk about. But in the commercial industrial space, it's a big deal. That's a lot of hot water. That's a lot of energy spend.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of natural gas spend. And so if we can eliminate that total natural gas spend, that's how we prospect. We look for folks like hotels, prisons, wineries, breweries. I know it's awful. We have to go to every winery and every brewery we see.
It's just the worst.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, or you go to the brewery conventions. Those are always interesting. Anyway, so that's what we do. I mean, we focus specifically on, everybody uses electricity, so we don't have to worry about that part. But if their company or their industry uses a significant amount of hot water, I mean, imagine what a hotel uses.
Right.
Every morning, everybody's taking showers, the restaurant's open and running, they're doing laundry all day long, and then at night you got more showers, and then the restaurant's open again. It's a significant amount of hot water. If we can eliminate that natural gas spend, imagine what that does throughout the year, throughout the next 6 years, 8 years. So
I know we've had conversations about marketing, and as you're getting going, right now there was a lot of self-funded elements. So
all of it.
And understanding like none of this is cheap, obviously, like flying to trade shows, giving speeches, but in terms of really like getting your voice out there, is that how you feel is the most successful way to just get your product out?
For today, just because we don't know any better and we haven't found folks like you that can sit down and say, hey, we've looked at this and we think we can help. We have had some very small conversations about, okay, who would you need to go after? But nobody's ever come back and said, we think we figured it out, because, oh my gosh, you're only looking at these industries that have access to the sun, that have roof space or have ground mount space, so real estate next to their facility, and they use a lot of hot water. And they're in a favorable part of the country that's going to even allow that. There's still some some pushback in some of the governments, especially in net metering and some of the other stuff. There used to be here, now it's not. So what used to be, I could sell back what I wasn't using and I would get a fraction of it. Now it's becoming even less.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Now, Glyn, we've had conversations where I remember one of the first times we met, I said, is this your first time having your own business? So girly pop of me. But you said, no, actually, you've owned multiple businesses, and you mentioned something that I found really interesting, and I'd love to get into it a little bit.
Okay, which one did you want to talk about? Environmental energy? One?
You had mentioned that you had lost everything twice before.
I have. I've made some very poor decisions, and yeah, we've lost everything twice, and picked up ourselves, and you know, the key again there was just don't stop. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the bills are going to come, but if I'm not out there hustling, it's still going to come. Whether it lays on the floor, it's never going to go away, so I can't stop. And so that's exactly what happens. And you know, you learn really valuable lessons in people and who you surround yourself with, and it's past just trusting them. It's just who's in your life and why, and am I benefiting their life? Because if I'm not, maybe I don't need to. But if they're not benefiting, or if there's not a way to help, then I'm not saying don't ever talk to them again. I'm just saying let's get together with like-minded people and everybody bring each other up. And so when things do get bad, there is a support system there, and there is something to fall back on. But at the end of the day, it's all about me. I mean, if I don't take care of me, I couldn't have taken care of my kids. And so, I've got to keep going. And part of that mental health for me is, it's not chasing a dream. It's allowing that dream to just, you forcing it to kind of happen,
That's good.
I will not sell $80 million next year unless I get this word out, and I may not sell it anyway. But guess what? I know I'm not. It's the Wayne Gretzky thing. You miss all the shots you don't take, and so
that's spot on.
Our shot. This is it. We need to get out there, and we need to answer the phones. We need to answer our emails. We need to send out the proofs of what we can do and share, and then show that it's God. I mean, I literally got these panels and took them to my house. So, I mean, people that don't understand and can't watch a YouTube video and just want to see it and feel it and touch it, I have them. I own them and put them in my garage just for that particular case. Do I drive them around a lot? No, because they're heavy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then if you add water to it, it's they're 70 pounds heavier per panel than your average solar panel, but they're 89% efficient. So there's a give and take.
There's a lot of business owners that are in their 20s, maybe in their 30s, who listen to the podcast. And I can only imagine that if they lost everything right now, I mean, just feeling so defeated, feeling like they failed and not knowing where to start again. And I know having the mindset of okay, well, this business failed, let's focus on the next one. Let's restart. Yeah, so how do you, when you're in that moment, I don't know how old you were at the time or the circumstances, but when you fail, because it's inevitable half the time, but when you fail, how do you really pull yourself out? And I know you mentioned to keep moving forward, but when you feel so alone in that, how do you combat that?
I've been asked that before. I don't know. You just own it. I failed. I did. Okay. So what? I failed. I fell off the monkey bars when I was 5. I could have said I failed and I'll never get on them. But at the time, it's awful. It sucks. It's the worst. You're making phone calls. Hey, I'm not going to be able to pay that. It's going to be a couple weeks late, but it's coming. And sometimes you got to make that call a second time. I mean, but you just. Find what you're passionate about. My deal was I could never just sit behind a computer and do what you do. And I could never. Yeah. I have to be on stage. I have to be talking to people, or at least sharing what we can do and working on our solutions, and then bringing other people in to share it with them, and then passing it down along the line. Hey, now it's time for engineers. Now it's time for this. Now it's time for this. And that's just what I was. And So I couldn't, look at me. It's like I'm trying to sell Diet Coke. I could probably do it, but not near as effective as you could. I mean, that guy's drinking Diet. That's certainly not working. We're not going to buy that. I mean, but you see, so you find things that you love, that you're passionate about, that you care about, that you're interested in, that you want to learn, you want to help push the product, you want to help it get better or whatever, and then become a part of it. And that's exactly what happened to me. But I'm 56. I mean, I'm not, this isn't like, I don't have many more of these left. So if this doesn't go well, then is there something else? I'm sure, because I don't know how to stop.
Right.
But right now, there is nothing else. This is it. I'm all in. My wife's all in. I've got business partner in Colorado. She's all in. We've got other friends that are doing huge support thing. We've got a gentleman by the name of Terry, who's our engineer, who's absolutely unbelievable. And what he's doing and doing it for absolutely an unbelievable price is just, it's all part of it. Who you surround yourself with. You know, it's okay to cry. I mean, it's okay.
100%.
It's okay to be down. It's okay. You know, take a day, take 2, take 3, take what you need.
Yeah.
But also, when you get out of the shower and it's time to go, it's time to go, and it's okay to go. That's where I failed.
Mm-hmm.
I fell right there, and it was awful. But I'm not there anymore.
That's right.
And that's, you know, and I think that in our culture with Emily and Terry and my wife, we just generally care. If something happened to Terry and or something happened to Emily, then we would cover what they need to cover, and we would do that. But I mean, I've been in Vegas and MGM got hit, you know, and so my team's going, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I wasn't staying at the MGM, so
right.
But it was crazy. I mean, that Vegas was nuts during that time, and but I didn't even know it was happening, and they were checking on me, and it was just,
it's amazing.
It's just you know. There's a lot to be said about who you allow in your circle, and then who you allow to stay in your circle. I mean, you can have various sized circles, but that one that's really close is really important.
No, that's spot on, Glyn. I mean, really, who you're spending that day to day with, who's speaking life into you, and when you fail, they're like, "Hey, get up, you got this."
Yeah.
Versus, "Haha, you failed." Like,
right.
You know, that's all of that really matters. So that's. Would you say do you have anyone, whether it's like materials or not like business influencers, but who did you really like learn from or like read from or gain knowledge from?
You know, for years I was a serial reader on self-help, you know, and then you find the Zig Ziglars of the world, and you find the sales ones, and you find the ones that say, okay, you know, how do you have a conversation? And then, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I just would pick up like anything I could read that was positive and self-helpish. And there was a time when things weren't going great for our family financially. My wife and I just said, you know what, we're going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it was, and we're going to just spend 30 minutes, just us. We're going to spend the first 10 just drinking coffee, waking up. We're going to spend the next 15 to 20, and it's just going to be reading something, and it could be, you know, a Bible study book. It could have been the Bible. It could have been another self-help. It could have been a marriage book. But we're going to work that every single day, and we're never going to miss a day. And we didn't.
Wow.
And it helped. And so it was like not just holding ourselves accountable, but we were learning, and we were then taking action, and we were doing things. And, you know, next thing you know, 30 days later, we're through this book. We started this book, and now we can't wait to get to this book. And
wow.
Look how those interactions have changed. And so to this day, we still do it.
That's awesome.
Granted, it'll only be 4 or 5 times this month. But,
but you're still being consistent with this.
We did it this morning, and as a matter of fact, we decided to add another book. So we have these books that just have like, you know, 1 or 2 pages, and one that has, you know, maybe 15 great quotes, and then this other one's got a lot of meaty stuff in it, and so we had that. So.
It's so good. And there's a quote that was like, readers are leaders.
Yes.
And I'm not a huge reader. I'm not. But when I go to the gym and I go in the sauna, like I don't bring my phone in there, and I do read. And it's crazy that like I'm obviously 24 and single, but I'm reading a marriage book. And I'm also reading about the CEO of the Toms, like the shoe. Yeah. And so I read both at the same time. And it's so crazy where I'm like, why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
You know, like, why aren't you setting yourself up for success where you're learning about healthy relationships in a culture that glorifies toxic ones, you know? And so just kind of learning about, oh, well, it's okay to go to bed angry sometimes if you're thinking about the fight and then you resolve it the next morning. You know, just like little things like that that we don't think about.
Right, yeah. But all those things that you're reading about marriage and all of that stuff still equate in corporate world, and they still equate in the world of a busy restaurant. If you look at it as we all have emotion, and we live by it or we bottle it up, or and various in between. But learning about all these different things and read all you can. And it doesn't matter. If it's marriage, it doesn't, and you're not married, who cares? That's not the point.
Right.
The point is it's all about relationships and how
That's
do you
right.
interact. And, you know, maybe someday you will, but maybe you won't. But
Right.
armed with knowledge, I learned a long, long time ago that if you took a workman like a plumber and he has hundreds and hundreds of tools and most of those tools are in his van, he doesn't drive to your house and take the van and back it right up to the front door and open up and start unloading those tools. No, he walks in, he looks at the problem. I need this, this, this. He goes and gets just that and comes back out. Well, if you had told a 5-year-old, I need all these tools at this house at 8 a.m., what would happen? He didn't.
Chaos.
It's the concept is keep things simple. There's a huge difference between reacting to something and responding to it. Hey, when I was little, I used to try to get a candy bar at the grocery store. I'm sitting there and my mom's pushing it and I'm like tugging on. She's like, no, you're spoil your dinner. And I'm like, Mom. She's like, no.
Right.
And next thing you know, the hand's coming up. So the first couple times she just responded, no. And then now what's she doing? I pushed her to react. Was it my fault she reacted or was it her fault? Well, you can argue that because I pushed her a lot, a whole lot. But at the same time, she was in charge of her emotion. That dynamic is really kind of helped me throughout my entire life going, okay, this is about to happen. These are the 3 things. How do I make sure I respond no matter what happens? Don't react. Now, if the house is on fire, guess what we're going to do? We're going to react.
Right.
But when it comes to sales and when it comes to helping people solve a problem that they don't even know that they have, but they really need to see my opportunity is something as simple as allowing them to hear it, allowing them to then swallow it and understand it, and then go, hey, that may work. And then going, let's see. Because now they're asking me for my solution instead of me trying to sell it to them, because I don't need to if it works. I don't know if it works unless I can do a proof of concept and get their information. Once that happens, either we do or we don't. It's that simple. But the great thing is I can tell that owner, if my solution doesn't work, you can tell every solar guy ever to go pound salt, because if mine won't work, then theirs will never work. Because so often we put, maybe 1,000 PVT panels on a roof, and then we'll fill the other half with another 1,000 photovoltaic regular solar panels and offset it and just crush it. So I'm not against solar. I sell a ton of it.
Yeah.
I just don't sell the regular PV panel.
Right. It's like special edition.
Right.
So in terms of business, what are some pieces of advice that you wish you knew when you were 20? What are maybe like 3, or like, hey, these are the 3 things when it comes to business, maybe 3 or 5 of like, hey, this is what I would do, or don't do this, or, what's coming to your brain?
I'm going to roll out the cheesy ones. You have 2 ears.
From Wisconsin, so, we celebrate cheese around here.
Nice. 2 ears, 1 mouth. There's a time, not on a podcast, but there is a time when you need to listen and allow those questions to come up. And I think a lot of times in sales and entrepreneurship and people like me who are saying the same thing over and over and over again, we can kind of guess what their pushback is going to be, and so we try to cover it instead of allowing it to happen. And that's the hugest no-no. Allow these things and allow the interactions, and then respond to them. But I think the biggest one is listen, because they'll tell you how to fix their building if it can be fixed, or if they know. And when you put a solution in front of somebody, they'll know immediately it's never going to work. I've been on that roof. There's no room for solar panels. You're wasting this guy's time. But if you didn't listen and you didn't drag the operations manager in there and him going, what are you doing, dude? It's not going to work. So listen. And I think the other one is to, allow all of the things. It's not just good. It's not just bad. They're things, and there's a reason why there's things there, and we just don't realize it. And I think I've ran into several different people at different shows, and I've seen the same guy, at 4 shows. And the first 3, we just ignored each other. And finally, the
Are you
last
all,
one.
like all in the same industry? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. He's
okay.
selling something else, but we're not in competition with each other. But we happen to be at the same things. And I go, hey man, tell me your thing, because I want to know how I can help you. There's a reason I keep running into you, and I don't know what it is, but I need to figure it out. What's the reason I can help you? And so he goes on and he tells me his elevator pitch, like I just showed you. And so then I turn around and he goes, I know exactly who you are. Everybody talks about you when you're here. I hate you.
He's like, you're famous.
He's like, I hate you. You take all our time away. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And I go, how can I help you? And so he started asking some questions about some things that had to do with all of that. And so I gave him 30 minutes. And I'm like, here, man, here's my number. Call me. He sent me an email the next day. He goes, man, I killed it. I listened to 3 of the things that you said, and it made a total difference. And thank you very much.
Wow.
So, I don't know what that means other than, just be self-aware, be aware of what's going on and respond. Just be accountable, and I haven't been that way in my entire life. I was never always the greatest guy in the world, and I'm sure I wasn't the greatest father or husband in the world. But if you can admit that, hey, I wasn't, guess what? That means you're trying to be better now.
That's right.
So move forward, keep going. So. Did I answer your question?
That's good. Yeah.
Right.
Advice that in terms of business for people in their 20s. Yeah, that's good. Is there anything, I guess, you wish you knew when you were younger to yourself? Or is that kind of covered in the business?
I think if you always look back and say, that was really dumb of me. And to not do that is really dumb of you. To not go back and own it and say, that was wild. I put myself in a really bad situation, and it worked out the way it was supposed to. It failed, and I was in a horrible spot. I made that call, and I won't make that call again. And depending on how many times you have to say that to yourself is where you are. I won't make that call again, and then you never make that call again. Move on. This is it. But you keep walking that edge and keep thinking about doing that same. There's another issue. There's something else. So own it and find out what it is. Find that somebody you can say, I keep leaning this way. Why? And just ask. There are thousands of guys in this town, just in Springfield, Missouri, that will listen and help you and will help you grow your business. And whether they're even your competition brings out the cream. It rises to the top. We all want to be at the top. Well, usually Coke's right here, Pepsi's right here. Okay, but it's always like this. Okay, so they're not going to kill each other. They're helping each other. They share the same problems, and they just and so what. Most of the people that I just was at an event in Nashville, and guys like, I want you to have this book. And he's like, it's the greatest book that I ever read, and it's called The Fourth Quarter, and I want you to read it. And so I said, no, I'll tell you what. I took a picture of it, sent a picture to my wife. Elisa bought it. It arrived yesterday. I've already read the first three things today. Is it a good book? I have no idea. Do I even know what it's about? I don't. But I know that one of the guys who I would mentor if I was able to wanted to give it to me. And so you pay attention.
That's awesome.
But if I knew if I had a problem and I really needed some advice on how to handle a multi-million-dollar transaction or a contract or something, I could call him and he would either answer me right away or he'd say, let me get somebody else and I'll find you the answer, and he'd be there. And I think more people in their 20s need to know that. Yes, we need to guard our secrets. Yes, we need to protect ourselves and guard our flank, and we need to keep moving forward. But at the same time, we also should be vulnerable and should have that acknowledgement of our and know who to go to ask for help.
Yeah,
we can't all do this by ourselves. We just can't.
Like shoot your shot for business, shoot your shot for advice, shoot your shot for relationships. Because
podcast.
It's like for podcasts. I mean, like if you never try, you'll never know.
You're right.
And I mean, I have so many mentors and friends. I mean, even just having Glyn on the podcast, like if you don't just go to the event or do the random thing, who knows what opportunity you could be missing out on. So
yes.
So when you mentioned making those hard decisions, and especially stuff from the past, how do you make those decisions? Is it like a trust your gut type of thing? Do you consult other mentors? Like, how do you make those tough calls?
Depending on how you got in that situation will determine whether you should trust your gut or not. Because if you trusted your gut and look what you got, then, hey, is your gut telling you to keep going, or is your gut saying, hey, you were screwed up, we need to completely reverse this and figure out the best way out? And I think comes with owning it. It comes with, deal with the pain. You failed, okay, it hurts, it sucks. Do what you got to do for X amount of days, and then now that you're coming out of it, let's make these real decisions. And it may be calling a mentor, and it may be calling your old business partners and go, I got to tell you, I just apologize. I'm sorry. This is, and it may be owning it that way. It may be going to your spouse and saying the same thing, and maybe calling your employees. I don't know, but I can tell you that the best phone call you've ever made is that apology phone call after you've made it, because now all of that's gone.
Yeah, the anxiety, the pressure.
Yeah. And most of the time, what I thought was my fault and what I was actually apologizing for, that's not what they saw as my participation. And so that opened up a whole can of worms, because they were owning the same thing I was owning. And guess what? Neither one of us were getting there. And so over days, those conversations come out, and it just allowed healing. Are we ever going to do business together? Absolutely not. But I wouldn't throw a rock at him if I saw him on the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we don't need that toxicity.
Right.
It just you just
the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of room, and there's a lot of places, and we can all be in the same spot in the same room for a very short period of time, and everybody can get along. But I think that comes with the honesty of owning who you were before.
That's good. I know that's so good. And I mean, even in relationships or friendships too, just being able to say like, hey, I made a mistake, and, really like humbling yourself just makes the biggest difference, I feel like. So I don't know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It changes you. And then it changes you the next day and the next day and the next day, and on ways you're not even realizing it, and ways you interact with people. And it also protects you when then a new person walks in the door, and now are you guarded? Are you letting this person in? And if you are, why? And how far are they going to get in? And what's the reason here? And you have all of this experience that you just can go back and pull from. And that apology or that ownership is part of that experience. And it may be a small part, but it's still, all those little things add up. When you're 56, that's a lot of little things. I'm just telling you, it's a lot. So, you can read into a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, you look at yourself in the mirror twice a day. And you brush your teeth in the morning, and you're staring at nobody but you. And you're brushing your teeth.
Shoot, I must be vain, because I'm looking at there like 20 times a day. I'm just kidding.
When I brush my teeth at night, did I do right by everybody?
Yeah.
Did I make everything okay? If I've upset anybody, do I need to stop and fix it right now? Or is this something that needs to wait, or do I need to wait this out? What happened? Did I, how did I, at the end, when I go kiss my wife goodnight, am I good? And can I sleep without all these worries? And in my world, I'm worried about, I have 50 business cards today that I need to send emails to. Okay, well, that's not part of that's my work world. That's not, did I do
Separate
right by everybody world? So you mentioned this earlier, how do I stay grounded and how do I handle those things? There's a line. This is work, and although it gets blurry a lot, yesterday was all about my wife, and that was it. And all she cared about was, probably need to lay down and sit there and don't do anything for a while. But that's what happened, and she's like, do you want to go out to eat? Or do you want something home cooked? And I go, I would really like your spaghetti, please. Yeah. Because that's like the thing, that she made. It was always made everything special. And, is it the most rock star awesome meal? To me, it is, when you haven't had it for 2 weeks and then you're leaving for another week. And just that was just really important. And that was so supportive. And so today, what did I get to have before I came and jump on the podcast? Was a little what was left over.
That's
because
awesome.
4 a.m. I'm on a flight, I'm going to Atlanta, and I won't get that. So, making conscious decisions and on the separation of work and that works. Now, the following week when I go to Fort Lauderdale, my wife's coming with me. So
that's awesome. No, but I think what Glyn just said is so important, because as life gets so crazy, whatever role you're in, whatever big risk you're taking, you have to make sure that you compartmentalize some of that. You have to be able to stay sane, do things that matter, be intentional, and cut out that time, whether it's for your mental health or, keeping relationships in your life. So, that's great.
It's not just the relationships that you're talking about. It's also your business relationships. It's also your fellow coworkers. It's also the young lady that's working at the gas station. I mean, I used to see these videos where the dad was coming down the stairs and he's putting his tie on and he slips on a kid's toy and he falls down the stairs, and his wife's got a cup of coffee and he knocks into her and the cup of coffee goes everywhere. The door opens, the dog runs out, the UPS guy gets knocked over by the dog. And so they have this flash of all these people and where all they're going. And each one is now have a bad day. So all of this ugliness happens to every single one of them. And then they reverse it, and the dad falls down the stairs, and coffee spills on him, and he's like, I have an extra 30 minutes. I'll just go change. And everybody they flash it, and everybody has the greatest day. So it's another one of those books that I read and that turned into a video. No, it's good. So there's just self-awareness, be aware, keep going, be honest, be real, and own it.
And one of the books I was reading was, I'm a very emotional person, and it's hard for me not to like lead with my feelings. But something I was reading was, it's like, you boss your feelings around. And do I think sometimes we need to, yes, you need to go to therapy. You need to talk through things. My best friend knows that I have to talk through everything. But especially like if you're in a work environment or if you're at a trade show and you don't have time to deal with it and you got to keep moving, boss your feelings around and say, hey, look, you're not mad right now.
Yeah.
You're not upset. You're strong. You're confident. And then you can deal with it later.
That's exactly right, though.
Yeah.
I like to use the saying, I'm the dog, that's the tail.
Yeah.
The tail can never wag me. I can wag the tail. So if those emotions are going crazy, I go, wait, you're right. I'm the boss. That emotion is going to live over here. And it's, I'm scared to death, but we're not going to wag right now.
Right.
I'm going to keep going and I'm going to run. Or, hey, this is the greatest thing ever. Let's wag all day long. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's great. Now, as we're coming to a close, I have one last question before we do the way I end every show.
Okay.
So, Glyn, you shared your story. It's pretty cool. You've been in business and entrepreneur for most of your life. Is there ever a time, is there a risk too big to take? Or if you're someone that's young or, how do you know when it's time to risk it all and, dive all into a company like you're doing right now?
Have you ever heard, how do you eat an elephant?
I don't know. I don't think I have.
One bite at a time. So the key to answer your question is that manageable? Is this risk something I can manage? If the answer is no, then absolutely, that's not a risk that you need to. But if it's a risk, well worth it, and you have the support and you have the backing, and you go, okay, what would plan B, C, D be if? And you can answer those questions and you can answer it with confidence, and then you go back and you go, okay, and then you share this with your mentor, your spouse, your people in that inner circle, and you go, because what I'm seeing is unreal. Is this real? And then it helps. It helps. You want to own it by yourself, man, you're going to have headaches and your back pain. It just, you got to surround yourself with good people. But is there a big risk too big? Sure. Have I taken them twice? And I failed twice. But this is a risk that I'm really way over excited about. And I'm not concerned of failing this time. Well,
that's awesome.
Could I fail? Sure. I mean, could something happen? And we're having conversations with people that are nowhere near the United States. So yeah.
It's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Pretty freaking cool.
I keep going on too long.
It's good. This is what you do on the podcast. That's what you do. So obviously, Glyn, you can find Green CHP on his website. More on LinkedIn, other social stuff coming soon, a lot of dope stuff coming on the way. But Glyn, as we end every episode of Keeping Up with Cash, what is your favorite quote? What is your favorite song? And what do you want your legacy to be? When you're gone and all the days have come to an end, what do you want to be remembered as?
Okay, favorite quote right now has got to be sunlight's. It's hot, it's bright, and it's free. So that's my favorite right now, obviously, for very selfish reasons. My favorite song, Peter Gabriel, In Your Eyes, was our wedding song. So I'm going to have to go with that. But I do have a caveat.
Okay.
If there's a lot of people in a room and everybody's pretty jovial, having a good time, I can get the entire bar singing My Ding-a-Ling by Chuck Berry.
Okay.
And I can do it every freaking time.
He's like, weird special talent.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Mine is juggling, but that's cool.
Hey, let's go with that. We'll go with juggling. All right, there was one more.
And what do you want your legacy to be?
I want to be known as the group that brought PVT panels to the United States and changed the way we looked at natural gas spend.
Amazing.
That's what I'd like.
And that's what you like. That's what your personal one is.
Yes, but if you'd have asked me in April, I never even heard of this product in April, and now all of a sudden we've got somewhere north of $67 million worth of interest, and it's
insane.
Yeah, and if you take July 5th out, if you take from July 5th to April, if you take that whole experience out, then all of this has happened even faster, which is really unreal. But
wow.
You got to add the whole thing. It all counts.
Whole thing. Any last piece of advice for our audience?
Thank you very much. How do we get more listeners and more viewers? That's what we need.
Like, comment, subscribe. If you guys leave reviews, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, Facebook, reviews are huge. Just tell me favorite episode or whatever you guys like. Awesome. Thank you, Glyn, so much for coming on the pod. You're an amazing guest. Everyone check him out. And to my listeners, hopefully big things coming along the way. But remember, to live your life, have the most fun, and like Glyn said, surround yourself with great company who have great hearts. Love you guys. Bye.